This is my typical winter setup. High density polystyrene roof, high density polystyrene ashforth feeder, and then 2 high density polystyrene deeps. No queen excluder, it's winter, and I need to get these up to winter weight. That's my mission over the next 2 to 3 weeks. With the help of the nectar flow on now and this artificial feeding, I hope we can do that. I ratchet strap everything down, as you can see. I mean, obviously the bees will propolize everything, but it just helps to keep things a little water and wind tight. This hive has the standard Abello floor. For other hives, I've made my own floors, under entrance ones. We can have a look at those in a minute. Just trying to get them up to overwintering weight. I did leave all the colonies, almost all the colonies, with 20 kilos of stores 6 weeks ago at the end of the honey crop season, but they'd already made significant progress through it, so I needed to top up. The ivy flow's on now, which will assist, and this will just make sure that I can feel confident these are all going to be up to weight. These are some free samples I was given by a very generous friend. I've got 3 half kilos, so that's 1.5 kilos in a mixture of candy praline fondant, and then I got straightforward what is effectively baker's fondant. So 1.5 kilos of that, 2.5 kilos of that. I'm putting 4 kilos on, and they'll get through this in 7 days. Probably less than that, actually. I only check in here once every 7 days. When I come back, it's gone. So they're really getting through it, and I can see the drawn foundation. There's new white foundation in there, and you can see some of it's capped, so that's really good to see. But hefting it is still a little underweight. I want to have 20 kilos in there again with the flow on. Might not look very busy on this camera, but I can assure you there is a hum around me of bees right now from all of the hives. With the ivy flow on and a little bit of remaining balsam nectar as well. Where I think it's getting a little cramped with me cutting an opening on the underside of these pouches of fondant, I've just cut one in the top and flipped that up. They can get over the top. In case you're wondering how they're going to get to all of this, because it's sitting very proud of the frames, I've got an upturned poly ashforth feeder here. Not only is it an excellent feeder for giving the bees access to syrup quantity fast, if you upturn it, it provides a really convenient cavity for fondant feeding. It will go like that when I finish twiddling it about. This is high density poly, so it's a fantastic thermal insulation, so it keeps them nice and warm and protected. They're also going to get a high density roof on top as well. This has at least 4 times the thermal value of wood, and it's just really convenient for overwinter feeding. I appreciate we're in the autumn now, not overwintering, but for fondant feeding it's really handy. This one's not doing bad weight wise. I'm giving them this block of just over 3 kilos of baker's fondant. Let them take that down. You can see there's plenty of fresh wax in here, producing that in the flow right now. This is one of the underfloor entrances I use. It's good for hive security. The bees really make that area their own. I can just leave that in here now. They'll take that down much slower than they would take down heavy syrup. So rather than that sudden burst of stimulus to lay eggs. It's a steady stimulus, perhaps more akin to a natural flow. At least that's the idea. Of course, I don't have any scientific evidence to back up what I'm saying. More than, well, I guess just as important for me is the convenience of using fondant versus syrup. Look at that, I just cut a lump of baker's fondant, stick it on, that's it, that's what I do. There's no special equipment. Appreciate I'm using the upturned Ashforth feeder here, but I needn't. It's just a convenient thing that I have that provides that cavity and insulation at the same time. And that's that one done. That's all I have to do feed wise. There's no messy syrup, there's no splashing onto the grass around. In general, the fondant's just easier to work with and doesn't seem to attract bees from other colonies and wasps in the same way that syrup often does. This is a slightly different setup. You can see I'm on a single deep here with this one. They had some queen mating issues. We had quite a rainy, wet, windy late spring, which interfered with the ability of some of the queens to mate. So there was quite a bit of supersedure this year in the early summer. That affected this colony. So they're on a single deep right now. This is an Abello setup as well. You can see they've got this integrated feeder. It's not very big. I don't think there's so much of a focus on this setup now. This is slightly older equipment. The Ashforth feeder that I've showed you before is the preferred syrup delivery method now with Abello customers. But what's good about this is I was feeding them some heavy syrup that I made a couple of weeks ago. Just let them settle down. I can pop this off and I can put the fondant straight on. There they are. It's good population in there. You can see they put a bit of bridging comb in there up to the feeder. Let's give these bees a chance to get out. I'll put this on the entrance side. Again, another underfloor entrance there. They really make that entrance area their own, and it seems to confuse potential robber bees and wasps. Good bit of pollen coming in. So these shallow roofs that just sit nicely within the rebate on the old system doesn't have the clearance, so I've had to cut that fondant in half, and hopefully this should just go on the top. There we go, nice and neat, and I shall ratchet strap that up. And that's quite a bit of fondant for that small colony. I think that'll take them a couple of weeks to get through that, although often I'm surprised and they can get through it a bit faster. There seem to be enough for the field bees to do right now out on the ivy nectar flow. This is a small colony from a split I did probably 2 months ago now. Produced a drone laying queen, which they dispatched and replaced. Again, I think the drone laying queen problem came from the 2 weeks of rain and wind that we had. That meant some of the queens just couldn't mate properly. Need to put apivar strips in here. You might say, well, it's just a small colony, it's relatively new. I know, but I've opened the pack of 10 apivar strips. It's 2 strips per colony. I've got to use them. Once it's open, the effective chemical starts to evaporate off the strips. So I've just prepared a couple earlier. I just cut off a couple of bits sticks off of a tree. I'm doing this with one hand. I've got my pack of apivar. We've got like that ready, so there we go. Going to split that in half and put that on the sticks. It won't hurt. For this small nuke I will put on a slab of fondant. It's over a kilo. Try and get it flush to the top. I mean, if they don't use it right now, it will sit there with them for the winter, nice and handy. Yeah, pretty much flush to the edge of the feeder entrances, and let's pop the top on. And they're in a good place, I think, now. Be a nice fresh queen for the spring. Put about 5 kilos of fondant on this 7 days ago, and not only have they removed it, eaten it, but they've also started building a significant amount of comb in there. So that's interesting. I suspect that's actually come off the flow. I'll clear that out, take the plastic off. This is a decent weight now. They don't need any more feed. I thought that they would do, because they were really light last week, which made me put the 5 kilos on. But it looks like they're doing really well. This was a really strong, productive hive through the summer. This and another hive were my top performers. So it seems like they're doing it again. The ivy flows on and they're making the best of it.